Last week, President Donald Trump basically declared war on anyone who criticizes him. What do I mean? On Thursday, the president signed the National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, or NSPM 7. The directive, titled Countering Domestic Terrorism and Organized Political Violence, focuses exclusively on anti-fascist or left-wing activities and mandates a national strategy to investigate and disrupt networks, entities, and organizations that foment political violence so that law enforcement can intervene in criminal conspiracies before they result in violent political acts. So this was caught by journalist Ken Klippenstein. He reported on this Saturday and was like, hey, this seems to not be widely reported, and I'm trying to figure out why. Here's what he wrote. I don't want to sound hyperbolic, but the plain truth is that NSPM-7 is a declaration of war on anyone who does not support the Trump administration and its agenda. Yeah, I mean, those are, it's not good. Not good at all. And there's a lot of problems with the contents of this memo. For example, they're basically admitting that they're targeting pre-crime. I mean, think of Minority Report, okay? Another issue is that they're casting a very wide net in targeting their groups, individuals, funders, and entities, okay, that supposedly foment violent political acts, while listing several protected beliefs as indicia of extremism. Now, what particular beliefs? Well, they say, and again, a lot of these are very vague, but one of them apparently is anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity, support for the overthrow of the United States government, which, by the way, they're not including the January 6ers in that, extremism on migration, race, and gender, again, vague, and hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality. All of this is set up in a very explicit way with the vagueness to target people on the left. So if you're critical of capitalism, then, well, you're a target. If you're critical of fundamentalist evangelical Christianity, then you're a target. If you believe in transgender rights or gay rights, you're a target. They're basically coming after everyone who is not a straight white Christian Trump supporting Republican. That's the reality here. And it's not just hypothetical. The memorandum entrusts enforcement of this to the FBI's over 4,000 strong Joint Terrorism Task Force, which removes legal challenges to directing the National Guard or other military forces to come in and crush domestic dissent. Wow. Klippenstein wrote that for the Trump White House, the beauty of using an already existing network is that it bypasses congressional oversight and scrutiny and even obscures federal activity to governors and legislatures at the state level. Targeted activities, as I mentioned, are also pretty broad, just like the criteria there. And they listed things like swatting, rioting, looting, trespass, assault, destruction of property, threat of violence, and civil disorder. And they brand them as domestic terrorist acts, which they are not. This also targets any individual or group who might fund activity the administration says is terrorism, and directs the IRS to, quote, take action to ensure that no tax-exempt entities are directly or indirectly financing political violence or domestic terrorism, which, again, broadly defined. They're targeting nonprofits, okay? And as DropSite News pointed out in their reporting of this, the memo authorizes the Attorney General to designate domestic groups as terrorist organizations for the first time in American history. By targeting beliefs and protest activity, the directive positions dissent itself as a potential crime. This is bad. This is real bad. Okay? They basically want to criminalize all political opposition using these very flimsy excuses of, oh, it's the left that is dangerous and violent. They're all terrorists. No, that assertion is not based on reality whatsoever. In fact, according to data from the National Institute of Justice, right-wing violence actually led to about 520 deaths since 1990, compared to around 78 deaths due to left-wing violence. That report, you can't find it anymore, okay? Because it was removed. It was censored by this administration shortly after Charlie Kirk was killed. And they did so because it counters the narrative that they are desperate to create. That is the left wing that is wholly violent and unstable, and they're the cause of all of our problems. No. Look, this memo is really bad, okay? But, you know, and will lead to a lot of bad things. But just like a lot of the bad things happening now, it didn't just happen on its own. As Klippenstein points out, that there were previous administrations that had opened this door. And Trump is just, like he does with all the previous doors that were opened, he's rushing through, and basically he is the bull in the china shop now. As Klippenstein explains, a pre-crime endeavor, preventing attacks before they happen, was actually core to the post-9/11 concept of counterterrorism itself. No longer satisfied to investigate acts of terrorism after the fact to bring terrorists to justice, the Bush administration adopted preemption. Overseas, that led to aerial assassinations by drone and special operations kill missions. Domestically, it has led to counterterrorism campaigns whose hallmark was excessive and illegal government surveillance, for example, of Muslims in New York City, and use of undercover agents and confidential human sources to trap and entrap would-be terrorists. The irony is that now the Republicans are looking to claim that that's what happened on January 6th, by the way. Again, ironies upon ironies, right? Now, he writes that now with Donald Trump's directive retooling the counterterror apparatus to go after Americans at home, I mean, when he said he's going to go after the homegrowns next, he wasn't kidding. This means monitoring political activity or speech as an investigative method to discover radicalism. Nowhere in this memo do they mention that, yes, Americans have protection on our First Amendment rights to protest, to organize. And you know why? Because they don't want you to have those rights. They don't want you to do those things. And look, Stephen Miller, who's the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, he's already trying to make use of this document. In fact, he wrote on social media on Friday, "We are witnessing domestic terrorist sedition against the federal government. The JTTF has been dispatched by the Attorney General. Pursuant to NSPM-7, all necessary resources will be utilized." So there you go. This right here, it is meant to chill free speech, to stop peaceful political protest, and to allow them to come after any group, any nonprofit that is fighting in the courts and in the media, okay, to protect people's civil rights. They're going after those people. This is what we're up against, folks. This is what we're up against. It is a targeted assault on the rights of all American citizens, using the tools that were granted by previous administrations to go after foreign terror cells. Look, this is much, much worse than having to take off your shoes to get into an airplane. This is clearly a war against freedom. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.